With spring training right around the corner, who are the players that you must keep your eyes on? Let Matt and I inform you on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we are your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And if you're listening on the audio side of things on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a little 5-star rating and review. And you know what? If you do that, go to subtext after that, send us a screenshot of your rating and review, and you'll have a chance to join our covered or listen to the league. And plus, you get so much more on subtext this time of year with our rankings, in text right to your phone with instant alerts. You're going to want to join us on subtext too. But guys, real quick, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. And guys, today's episode is a fun one. Spring training about, not too far away. Pitchers and catchers report in about a little, about around 2 weeks. So spring training, a little around a month away or so. And we're telling you what players that you must keep your eyes on. And Matt, who do you want to talk about first today, my brother?
All right. So also too, I just want to point out the premise of this outside of guys that we're looking at, what we're going to be looking at as well when we're looking at these players, right? Is there a new pitch if we're talking about a pitcher? How they're performing. If it's a guy that's coming off, having an injured season, how's their velocity look if they're a pitcher? If they're a hitter, how's their swing? What's the exit velocity? Are they chasing more? That. Also, too, if they're on a new team, how are they adjusting? Do they seem to be struggling with something? Is anybody working on anything new? And that could attribute in two ways. That could be why are they performing so bad in spring training? Like if they're working on a new pitch, or are they performing well after coming off the injury? So we'll point this out, what we're looking for each player, and especially with this young dude I'm about to talk about. Can't really bury the lead with this kid. That's Jackson Holliday. You look at Jackson Holliday, and there's a lot of things you want to look for. First, for him to face major league pitching, that's numero uno. You want to see how often he's going to play. Does he make it past the first 2 to 3 weeks of spring training? Is it coming down to the wire where we saw Volpe finally say, hey guys, hey man, you made the team? Or like Dominguez, where he made it almost as pretty much as far on the spring training roster, but then was sent down right before the season started. So we're going to be looking to see what the transactions are, what they're doing, how often is he in the lineup with certain players to evaluate whether he's going to make the open roster or get sent down. So this is somebody you definitely need to pay attention to, because we all know who Jackson Holliday is. And if you don't, Jackson Holliday is the number one prospect in all of baseball. And welcome to fantasy baseball. Let me give you a little recap of who this dude is, and then I'll pass it off to my boy Dom here. Jackson Holliday, the reason why he is the number one prospect in all of baseball last year: 477 at-bats, 113 runs, 30 doubles, 9 triples, 12 bombs, 75 ribs, 24 stolen bases, 100 walks to 118 strikeouts, and batted .323. Now, the one thing I am not so keen on is the power numbers, but we all know that Jackson Holliday, I believe, has the power. He's only 20 years old. I think he'll eventually develop it. If not this year, he might show out. With that being said, he is pretty much MLB ready, but I don't think we'll see his ceiling or what his average season will be this year. That's why Jackson Holliday is pretty much coming at a discount this year Whereas next year, I think the price is just going to be outrageous. There is a possibility too where he just comes in and is Corbin Carroll. So there's a wide range of possibilities with Jackson Holliday, and I'm super excited to be a part of it. Dom, let me know. How do you feel? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Where am I at here?
You're pretty much spot on, but I feel like I'm gonna be the one that's like super aggressive here right now, especially with his current ADP over the last month. NFBC ADP over the last month is 200 on the dot. It's over 129 drafts in the last month. Jackson Holliday, 21st shortstop off the board. I think you buy right now. And I'm not talking about like the Backstreet Boys either.
In sync, actually,
I'm
wrong
saying,
reference.
In sync. There you go. Geez, I'm so excited here. I messed that one up. It is the Backstreet Boys, and I should know that
does it wrong.
as a 90s baby. But let's get to the fantasy baseball portion here. Let's really, get to the nitty-gritty with Jackson Holliday. We just saw somebody that we're going to talk about in a little bit here. Colt Keith got a deal. I think we see the same with Jackson Holliday. I think there's no reason that this kid isn't going to be on the opening day roster. I think he gets the deal, get some money in his hands. Orioles going to get a deal on a guy like this. And Matt, you kind of said, he could just be Corbin Carroll, and I don't see why not. You were talking about the power. If we're talking about scouting grades on the 40 to 80 grade scale, 40 being the lowest, 80 being the highest, Jackson Holliday has 60 power, 60 run, 70 hit. So this is a guy that could come up and hit 280, 290 with 25 homers, and I would say 35 steals, and that's kind of being, even I think that's even conservative. If he's there from opening day, the kid's going to translate. If you don't know, Matt Holliday, former, MLB All-Star, was, is his father. So the guy comes from, the DNA in the game. I think Jackson Holliday is going to be fantastic. If you're drafting right now, take him, as much as you can, and you walk away very happy because this ADP is going to move up from 200 to inside the top 100 very, very quickly. But let's keep things moving here. Let's talk about somebody else. Let's talk about actually another shortstop. Let's talk about O'Neal Cruz. And I love O'Neal Cruz. The injury last year, took a bad slide, was out, the whole year. What did he play last year? 9 games. Didn't really get to see the breakout season we were expecting. But O'Neal Cruz, still only 25. Still, I think, going to be an absolute monster this year. And we're getting a bargain. We're looking at ADP once again over the last month. Pick 76th, 11th shortstop off the board. I love that. I have O'Neal Cruz as the number 9 shortstop. So, I got him a little bit higher there. So I think we're getting value here on O'Neal Cruz so far. This draft season, a 30-30 threat. Everyone forgets how we were just, this guy was a top prospect a couple years ago. We were all clamoring over, O'Neal Cruz with the arm and the power. Ellie De La Cruz comes around and we all forget about O'Neal Cruz, but I think it's the same upside, same talent. Maybe, Ellie's in a little better lineup and a little better park, but you know what? We're getting a way better deal on O'Neal Cruz. I'm taking him everywhere this year. Matt, I think we're on the same page with this guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a no-brainer. Like going in the last season, I was all over him. I literally took him everywhere. Unfortunately with the injury, my guy just needs to learn how to slide. But I mean, the possibilities are absolutely like limitless with O'Neal Cruz. I feel like with him being, the 77th pick off the board, I think that's just ridiculous. He's my number 7 shortstop this year, so I'm still higher than Dom. If you're not getting him, you're crazy. Like, quite honestly, I've left a couple mocks where I have Ellie De La Cruz and O'Neal Cruz because Ellie has that third base and O'Neal Cruz has, shortstop. And your team is going to be very powerful and very fast, and you're going to have a good time. So it's a nice combo, risky combo, but I don't think the risky part is O'Neal Cruz. If anything, I think it's the Ellie De La Cruz price that is the risky part out of the two. O'Neal Cruz, I feel like, honestly, is pretty much something that we could pretty much count on at this point, and he just needs to stay healthy to do so.
Yeah, just stay on the field, and he'll be fine.
And it's not like it's a soft tissue or anything else. It was a freak accident, where, my 2-year-old knows how to slide better than him, and, it'll be fine. So without further ado, we have plenty of other names like Dom hinted, Colt Keith, and a bunch of other young guys that also too coming off injuries, things like that. We really just want to see what to look at and who to pay attention to. So please stay tuned.
And guys, real quick, we're talking to you about Factor. Get started on your resolutions with Factor. So you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready to eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue instead. Get chef crafted, dietitian approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, plus more. 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Stress less over meal times in the new year. Factors, no prep, no mess meals. Free up time otherwise spent shopping, cooking, and cleaning up. No more wasting time in the kitchen. Not only does Factor offer fast, simple solutions when you're too busy to cook, they also help me stay on top of my goals with offerings like Protein Plus and Keto. I can stay on track. This is definitely going to come in handy with all of the new year goals. Head to factormeals.com/lockedonmlb50 and use the code lockedonmlb50 to get 50% off. That's the code lockedonmlb50 at factormeals.com/lockedonmlb50 to get 50% off your first order. And guys, real quick before we move on, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national show covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And guys, lastly, but the one that means the most important, to Matt and I, and is the best this time of year for, us guys, join us on Subtext. We're introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Dive into the offseason with Matt and I as we provide our tiered rankings with over 100 outfielders and starting pitchers. And we're also going to be providing you guys with prospect insights, sleepers, breakouts, busts, and personalized draft grades. If you got any burning questions, we've got the answers. As the season unfolds, rely on us for dynamic content. Got real in-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call-up alerts, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead in your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where the path to your victories begin. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience. Oh, whew. All right, so that is a super amount of talking, Matt. I'm gonna pass it back to you here. We teased him at the top. Why don't you talk a little bit about Colt Keith?
Yeah, right after you forgot to mention the most important part.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, listener league, and we forgot to mention at the top. Essentially, if you join the subtext, which is free for 14 days, and you leave us a review on Apple, and you take a screenshot and send it to us on the subtext, it gets you an entry into the lottery to get a spot in the listener league. We're going to be filling them up quick. We're going to be giving you a whole bunch of different ways to get into the listener league as we get closer to draft season. So we're going to want to finish that right before the first weekend right before baseball. So we're going to be announcing first round on February 22nd and then giveaway spots pretty much every other week. So let's get started. Shoot us the love. We really appreciate it. But also, too, let's get back to baseball. Anyway, let's talk about Mr. Colt Keith. Talked about him at the top. Got the bag of money. Not a big contract either, funny enough. Like, it was what, Dom, $28 million for 6 years or something like that?
I believe that is correct, sir.
So he got pennies.
Yeah,
Dumb deal.
28.6 for 6 years.
That's a terrible deal, but I guess you know what? You give me 26 million before I play an ounce of Major League Baseball, I'm happy, especially at 22. Get my first big deal at 28. It's actually not a bad deal. Guy's an interesting prospect. I like him for a lot of reasons. If you're not familiar with him, which I'm sure he's not a name like Jackson Holliday, he had 507 at bats last year. He had 88 runs. He had 38 doubles, 3 triples, 27 bombs, 101 ribs, 3 stolen bases. 60 walks to 120 strikeouts and batted 344 last year. So there's a lot of good things in Colt Keith's game. He strikes out about 50% of the time, which is a lot better than other players who are like 70%, Aaron Judge, and other players. It's just, current MLB. But he also does have some play control, so he doesn't mutilate you in points leagues either. So he could be a sneaky late round pick for points leagues, especially with all those doubles that man hit last year. Those extra points right there. But also Colt Keith is going to have a lot of value, I feel, for Roto and 5x5, just based off the fact that, he's going to be putting up runs, ribbies, and he's going to have power. He's going to have batting average. He's just not a stolen base guy. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares? And I like Detroit's lineup. Yeah, it sucks that he has to hit 50% of his games in that stadium, but I think, the kid's got enough power where it's going to go over the fence no matter how you slice it and dice it. So Colt Keith, I don't think is going to have any problems. And, him and Green are just going to be the future of that team. It's going to be very fun to watch Detroit finally possibly step their game up and actually scare a team and, not my T-ball team around the corner that plays at the field. So, Colt Keith going to be a great fantasy asset and cheap this year.
Yeah, Matt, good breakdown here on Colt Keith. I really like him. I was high on him last year as he was coming up through the minors, really had a breakout season. Matt read you off those stats. And I think we see kind of a similar type of line in Detroit. The power is not going to, translate, even though Colt Keith is somebody that hits the ball super hard. I think we see like a Nick Castellano type season back when he was back with Detroit, where a lot of doubles, maybe like 22 to 25-ish home runs. Right now, he's projected by Roster Resource to hit 6th in this lineup, which is behind the Kerry Carpenters, the Torkelsons, Riley Greens. I could see him even moving up over a Mark Kana type, but I see why they have Kana there. They want to mix up the lefties and the righties. A lot of lefties at the top of that lineup. Kana's a righty. I could see that, but I think Colt Keith has, room to move up. The runs probably won't be very good, but you'll see a lot of homers, a lot of RBIs, and I think the batting average is going to be good. And in those points leagues, as Matt mentioned, Colt Keith knows how to take a walk, has a pretty good eye. So I think he'll help you in points leagues a little bit more than regular roto leagues because you're not going to get steals and runs from him. So, but Colt Keith, I moved him up to my 20th third baseman, but he's actually going to play second. The Tigers did announce that he's going to be their second baseman. I'd probably throw Colt Keith in my second baseman rankings, probably around like 19, 20, where I have like Vaughn Grissom and Tyro Estrada and David Schneider, right around those guys. I think he fits in right around there. But we'll see, definitely a guy that you need to keep your eye on during spring training. The reason that we're doing, this kind of episode. Let's move on to this next guy. And we're kind of going to speed run through some of these names because we're running a little bit long here. Let's talk about Jared Kelenic, big time prospect. I believe he was the number 1 prospect at some point last year. Started off like a house on fire, then kind of cooled down, and then he did some idiotic thing. I think he kicked something or broke something and missed around a month or so.
He took his spirit animal, Amara Stoudemire, and did what he did.
Yeah. So, he had missed some time with that. But, still only going to be 24 years old is Jared Kelenic. I think the Braves had to see something in him, but I'm watching him in spring training, seeing how he's looking. All the pressure's off at this point. That all-star studded lineup with, MVP caliber players and, all-stars. He's the last one that anyone's really looking at. But you know what? I'm keeping my eye on him in spring training. Another guy that can actually probably do decent in runs and RBIs. Kelenic is projected to hit 8th in that Braves lineup. So, when it turns over, he has Acuna driving him in, and he gets to drive in the likes of Murphy, Harris, and Ozuna. I think Kelenic, honestly, could be almost a 5-tool guy. The batting average is something that I'm never really expecting him to live up to. I know he's always been good in the minors with batting average, but I don't know. I have Kelenic, I believe, some of my top 50 outfielders. But Matt, where are you on Kelenic?
I like Kelenic this year. It's funny. Like you'll see my my mock drafts, and you'll be like, oh, Kelenic is there at the end of the draft, and it's like,
yeah, I've been doing the same thing.
Like he's my 42nd outfielder too. Like I
trust 41.
Yeah. So like we trust him to be the 4th outfielder in our drafts. Like I don't mind it. Like, I think the upside is there. I think he showed who he could be. He had the prospect pedigree. There's no reason he can't succeed, especially in that lineup. So Kelenic could be a very interesting price pick, and not really costing you much. He's honestly, in a lot of leagues, possibly even your first bench player. So I really do enjoy him. And I think that, hey, you pick him up and you see what he brings. If not, you drop him. It's really not going to be a big deal. But before we move on and we finish up this last round, I got young guys. And then we got some pitchers here that we really need to pay attention to, a bunch of injury prone guys. And, you know, I am like on the fence about what to do. So, like, this spring training can mean a lot. So, please stay tuned. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3 or 17. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many scores how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if you place when you place your first $5 bet or more when you win. Just visit fanduel.com/locked on to sign up today. That's fanduel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. So we are here. We are done. We are done with all these fun stuff. And I really do got a good name for you. I'm excited. This is Jackson Chourio, the other young guy that got, a bag of money. It seems like, Dom, I'm the young dude today. Even though you're the younger one between the two of us. Um, you know, these are guys that are important to talk about, and you know, Churio is a name that is going to be on everybody's forefront of their mind because he got the bag of money. Jackson Holliday has not yet, so it makes Churio that much more important because you look at Colt Keith, who's going to start the season most likely. You don't pay somebody that kind of money, along with like guys that have gotten paid right out the bat and said, "Hey, I'm here." So Churio is going to be there, and you know what? If you're not familiar with the dude, I'm gonna get you familiar with him just a tad. Um, you know, Plays for the Brewers. He's 5'11", 165 pounds, little light, but you know what? The dude's got a lot of talent. Last year, he had 583 at bats. He had 88 runs. He had 26 doubles, 3 triples, 22 bombs, 91 ribs, 44 stolen bases. And he batted 283. Great numbers. And on top of that, even this year in the Venezuela League, he had a nice season there too. A little, fall league action, 66 at bats. He had what, 15 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, a bomb, 6 ribbies, 3 stolen bases, batted 379. Like, that's a small sample size, but Jackson Chourio has the possibilities to be, a great 30, 40 guy in his future next year. I mean, this year, I don't know about that. I think if anything, we see the exact stat line he posted in the minors, and that would be his ceiling, in my opinion, which I'll totally take that all day. And he's going out as like, a little after pick 100, and I'm totally okay with scooping him up. He's, pretty high in my ranking. I think he's like my 32nd or 34th outfielder. I'm trying to double check that right now. My 34th outfielder. I'm pretty close to, my mindset of that. But Jackson Chourio, I think, is just going to light up the league. He could be the next really big name that hits it. Top 5 prospect, without a doubt.
Yeah, Matt, you're spot on with Chourio. And once again, I feel like I'm the hype man today because I'm so excited to talk about a lot of these guys, and Chourio is one of them. Over the last month, Chourio's ADP is actually pretty still conservative in my opinion. Pick 141, 32nd outfielder. I'm actually super bullish on Chourio. I have him as my 25th outfielder, and I just feel like this is like once again like a few years ago, right before Julio came up, and everyone was kind of really focused on Bobby Witt. And Julio is going around this point in the drafts. I know during spring training, as Julio was doing really, really good, and the writing was on the wall where we knew Julio was going to make the team. His ADP started to go up, but the writing's on the wall for Chourio right now too. He just got the contract, a bigger contract than Colt Keith. 8 years, $82 million for Jackson Chourio. Got himself the bag. I'm telling you, he's going to be in that lineup on opening day. He's going to be hitting in the top of that lineup, and this is a 5 tool caliber guy. I think the batting average might be something that kind of takes a little bit to get going, as we've seen with Julio and Bobby over the past couple of years. But the speed's legit. That's going to be there. The runs are going to be there. The RBI should be decent in that team. They just added, Reese Hoskins in that lineup, another good bat in that, Brewers lineup. So, in my opinion, 17 homer, 35 steal season where Chourio hits 265 with 90 runs and 70 RBIs. That's going to be a guy who we're talking about next year in that Corbin Carroll type of range, maybe a first round type of pick. So if you can get this guy Jackson Chourio right now as the 32nd outfielder, pick 141, you need to do it all day long. But let's keep things moving here. Let's talk about somebody who's way more controversial. Let's talk about Jo Adell. I love Jo Adell, and we've kind of actually talked about him a little bit on this podcast already this offseason. But I feel like, Matt, excuse me. I feel like we say this every year, but I feel like this is the make or break year for Jo Adell. Last year kind of got a little bit of an opportunity, not as much as we really thought he was going to get because he got hurt. Mike Trout got hurt. Adell gets the call, comes up. I think he hit a home run in his first game. Then he got hurt a couple of games later, but he had a strong season in the minors last year. Jo Adell did 74 games in the minors last year for Adell, 278 at bats, 62 runs, 15 doubles, 24 homers, 57 RBIs, 9 steals, hit 273. Jo Adell has all the talent in the world. We're kind of just waiting on the breakout. I think this year it could happen. I just don't know what the Angels' plan is for him. I really think if they don't want to play him, he needs to get traded at this point in his career. Let the man get out there and, play. I kind of just want to see what roster resource has, projected. They don't even have Jo Adell on the lineup, which is scary, but that's why I want to watch spring training. If this kid comes out like a house on fire, I think they have to get him in the lineup, or like I said, trade him. But Jo Adell is somebody I'm definitely keeping my eyes on during spring training.
Yeah, he's somebody that could be featured all throughout spring training and moved right before the season opens. So, he's one of those prime targets. I mean, Angels are just, in my opinion, the worst organization in baseball, and they're even worse than the Pittsburgh Pirates.
The Haterade's out, Matt. Haterade's out today.
Been out. Like, honestly, like that is just a poop hole of ownership and management. So, I hate the Angels. But anyway, Jo Adell is going to be interesting, and I think you covered him pretty well. I'm just going to move on because we are also lacking there of time. We're going to talk about Nestor Cortes. Everybody's like darling pick last year. Everybody was trying to scoop him up everywhere, and unfortunately was dealing with injury going into the season. Didn't really pitch much and had some limited action at the end of the season, and then went down again. So like Nestor is just unfortunate what happened in 23, but I think he's going to bounce back. I think Nestor's got plenty of fuel in the tank. The little mustache machine is, going to be just fine. He's at a serious value where he's like your pitcher 5 or 6 at this point. And I'm totally okay with having him at that point. He's going to be great. The likelihood of your pitcher 5 or 6, flopping and being on the waiver wire after week 2 is, the same likelihood that Nestor Cortes could be. So why not try and take the upside pick of Nestor Cortes? And what we're going to pay attention to is what his velocity is in spring training. Is there a new pitch? Is there a bag of money being thrown his way? Which there was. He signed a 1-year contract for $4 million, which tells you the Yankees willing to invest and keep him on the roster. So what else is going to happen? And we'll also see, where he's going to be in the rotation too. If he's going to be pitching every week and get the 2-week starts, that'll show you exactly what's going to happen. So we'll see later in spring training what his outcome is going to be closer to drafts, but he's somebody you definitely want to take a look at and make sure that velo is staying up as high as it did in 2022.
Yeah, Matt, good take on Nasty Nestor. Right now, he's coming off the board at pick 267, which I think is outrageous. Monster seasons in 2021 and 2022. We saw legitimate changes from Nasty Nestor, and as Matt talked about, that's what you want to see in spring training. I think Nasty Nestor is really going to have a monster bounce back season. I'm taking him everywhere. I have him as a top 40 starting pitcher. I think you take advantage of the ADP right now, and you can literally get him as you're probably a last pitcher. But with that being said, Matt, anything before we head out of here, brother?
No, just check us out on Subtext. Give us an awesome review, and we'd be grateful and love to see you in that listener league. So
yeah, guys. Shout out to our everydayers and listeners. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And guys, look out for a new episode tomorrow. But guys, until then, see you.
Peace.